Trina, and this is my August reading wrap-up. There are timestamps in the description of this video in case you want to jump straight to one of those book reviews, or if you want to jump over one because you're not that interested in my thoughts on it. But we are going to start out with my TBR check-in. So I had 6 books on my TBR for August, and I read all 6 of them. This is the first month in a long time, if not the first month in this entire year, where I read all the books on my TBR within that month. Out of the 9 books total that I read this month, 4 of those I actually listened to the audiobooks of, and the other 5 I read in the print format. Any of the audiobooks that I listened to this month, I'll put a little note on the screen to let you guys know which ones those were. And don't forget that I do an audiobook review series where I talk about just the narration, but I haven't yet reviewed any of these audiobooks that I listened to this month. That will be in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that if you are very interested in thoughts on audiobooks. So into the book reviews for August now. As always, I'm starting at the lower end, the books that I liked the least, working my way up to my favorite books of the month. First up, I'm talking about Perfect Days by Raphael Montes. I rated this book 1 star. Unfortunately, it is an adult thriller novel. This is set in Brazil and written by a Brazilian crime thriller author, and it is about a main character who is a stalker. He falls for this girl and he like wiggles his way into her life in some creepy ways, and then he ends up kidnapping her and taking her on a road trip. A lot of people compared it to the book You by Carolyn Kepnes. That is a very apt comparison. They do have similarities. My main overall issue with this book was there was absolutely zero tension or suspense, which is something that I need a lot more than this book gave me when it comes to the mystery and thriller genre. It's just so straightforward, like a killer's manual of what he's gonna do and then him getting away with it, and just, you know, it wasn't interesting because you knew what was gonna happen because he's telling you what's gonna happen, and then it happens. There's no hurdle, no obstacle. What this book really has going for it is its readability. It was gripping. I always wanted to keep reading it because I just kept holding out hope that the other shoe would drop and something would drastically change the course that events were taking. It never happened in a way that fulfilled me, unfortunately. And going back to that comparison with You, if you hated You and the reason you hated that book was because you thought the main character was just too awful, you will definitely hate this book as well, because this character is just as awful, if not more so. In the end, I just wasn't a fan. The next book I read this month was The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. This is another adult mystery thriller, and it is about these 4 friends who were best friends in like their high school or boarding school, and they used to play all these pranks. They had this game called The Lying Game where they just tried to lie to people and see who would believe it. One of these lies and things that they got involved in ended up getting them expelled from the school, and now it's like 15 years after they got kicked out of school. These girls have not seen each other in the past many years. They've all moved on with their lives, and then one of them calls the other 3 and says she needs them, and they all end up back in that town going to like the reunion dinner of their old boarding school, and the reader starts to see how all these different events from the past and from the present fit together, and we're basically just trying to learn about what that event was that got them kicked out and what really happened. This book had all of the suspense and all of the tension that I want. You really don't know where things are going. You suspect everyone and everything. There are a lot of obstacles and hurdles and stuff. However, this book only got 3 stars because I just don't think that this improved upon Ruth Ware's previous 2 books. I am a fan of her writing. Her mysteries are lacking, and this one was the most lacking of her 3 books so far. It just didn't set itself apart from the genre or from this author's previous books for me, so it was a little bit lackluster. I had 4 4-star reads this month, and the first one I'm going to talk about was A Map of Fates by Maggie. This is the 2nd book in the Conspiracy of Us trilogy. This is a YA contemporary adventure series about a girl who finds out that she's actually part of this like ancient secret society. I really definitely thought that this was a big improvement on the first book. For being such a clue-based, action-y series, the first book didn't give me enough clues in action. This book brought it. There was a lot of world travel, a lot of hunting clues, and the romance kind of picked up for me because I just wasn't feeling it before, but I could start to feel it in this book, and yeah, I just thought that this one was really an improvement over the first book, and so that is why I enjoyed it so much. People call it the National Treasure or the Da Vinci Code of YA. Those are definitely great comparisons, and I would recommend it if you like either one of those things. Then I read Wild Swans by Jessica Spotswood, which is a YA contemporary novel about a girl who has this strong family legacy that she is struggling with living up to, because all of the women in her family have been these greatly talented ladies, like poets or singers or artists, and then they all have met tragic ends, with the exception of her and her mother. Her mother fled her life and abandoned her as a child, and then in this book her mom comes back into town, back into her life, so she is dealing a lot with family issues, as well as the pressure and expectations for her to also come up with this great talent, which so far she doesn't have. I really enjoyed the family emphasis in this book and how the main character struggles with her mom and the whole family legacy. I really enjoyed the romance in this book. Jessica Spotswood writes absolutely fantastic, bookish, nice guys. This book is very atmospheric. You're going to get a strong dose of the setting. If you're looking for something with a very strong plot, I don't think this is it, but if you love very atmospheric reads that are character driven and have an emphasis on family with lots of diverse side characters, I definitely think that this is one that you would enjoy. Next is Girl Out of Water by Laura Silverman, which is a 2017 debut novel. This is also a YA contemporary. This one follows our main character, who has grown up in Santa Cruz, California. She is a surfer girl. She loves her surf town and she never ever wants to leave, but then all of a sudden her aunt gets into a car accident and breaks both of her legs. So our main character and her father have to pack up and move away from all of the things and all of the friends that our main character loves, so that she can help to take care of her 3 cousins over the summer. And this book just explores the new friendships and relationships that she makes. And again, it has a very strong family connection in it, and there is a really great love interest that I really loved. He was just a really great, sweet, nice guy. And this one also has a ton of diverse side characters in it. Laura Silverman has been pretty open on her Twitter account that she has a disability, and although the main character does not, the love interest does have a form of disability, and then of course the aunt does too, although they aren't the same thing that Laura Silverman has, I believe. But there are some really great conversations in this book about the main character, who is able-bodied, kind of adjusting her way of thought about these other characters and their disabilities, and I thought that that was pretty great. I'm sure that that comes from a place of experience from the author. I really connected to the parts of this book where Anise is dealing with her friendships. Like, I felt like this book was calling me out. I could so completely relate to why Anise was really reluctant to open up to and connect with her friends, because she just got into her head about it. And as someone with anxiety, I don't know if this main character has anxiety, but it was something that I was like, oh, I know those feelings so well. I totally hold myself back all the time. And yeah, it was just really relatable to me. I really enjoyed spending time in this story, and I would recommend it for sure. Next up is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzi Lee. This is a YA historical romance adventure novel, and in it we are following our young main character Monty, who is bisexual. The author of this book is also bisexual, and Monty is about to go off on a grand tour of Europe with his sister Felicity and his best friend Percy, who he has a crush on. There is a very prominent male-male romance and flirtation all throughout this book that is very evident by the book summary and by chapter 1. Monty as a character was amazing. He's very smarmy, he's very flirtatious, he's very sassy, and his narrative voice really made the book for me. There is a pretty action-packed and very intriguing, interesting plot in this book that I was interested in, but I found that it kind of dragged at times. It was really the characters that made this book such an enjoyable experience. The love interest, Percy, is also black and he has epilepsy, so there are some good conversations again about these things, but because this is a historical setting, there's a lot of racism and ableism and homophobia presented in this story because of the time period. But our main characters never embody those ideas, they never support those ideas, they try to fight back against them, and I just really enjoyed this because those characters, like, they're an amazing trio. I really love them. The last 3 books I read this month were all rated 5 stars. They are all all-time favorites, and one of them was a reread. I'll start with that. It's Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling, book 2 in the Harry Potter series. I listened to this on audiobook. I don't really have any new thoughts to tell you guys, so I won't keep you here listening about Harry Potter. I will say the same thing I did last month about the audiobook. It is absolutely fantastic to get to relive this world and this story in a new to me format. So I'm really enjoying my audio reread of these. The last 2 books on this list were both my absolute favorites of the month. They were both new reads for me, and they both made it into my all-time favorites list as of now because they both just showed me such strong pieces of myself. And I'm going to talk about Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli first. This one is a YA contemporary romance about Molly, who is a Jewish, overweight, anxious girl. She takes medication for her anxiety, and all three of those things are own voices representation. And she's a girl who's had a lot of crushes. She's had 26 crushes in her life, but she's never had a boyfriend. She's never been kissed. And her twin sister gets into a new relationship with a new girlfriend, and the two of them team up to kind of push Molly out of her comfort zone and say, we're going to set you up with someone. We want you to get a boyfriend, because Molly is now like feeling a little bit left out because her sister's in a new relationship. She feels like everyone's pairing off, and she doesn't know why she's holding herself back from romance. I related to Molly hardcore because I also am overweight and I also have anxiety. It was such a positive portrayal of both of these things, but very, very real because, you know, not everybody has positive thoughts about those things. And I also hardcore related to the love interest in this book because he embodied a lot of things that I connect with. And so I just saw myself so much in this book. I really enjoyed it. It was so cute. I loved all the side characters. Not only does Molly have some own voices representation, there's a ton of diversity in the side characters. I think it's an important read and also a very fun read, and I loved it. That's all I can really say. And then we are to Bad Romance by Demetrios, and this is a YA contemporary novel that is about an abusive romance between a girl and a guy. This is a very difficult book to read. There are going to be extraordinarily huge triggers for an abusive relationship, for rape, for thoughts of suicide, but this book is so real, it is so powerful, it is so important, and it means so much to me because I've said before, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but because I get a lot of new viewers on wrap-ups, I have been in an abusive, toxic relationship before, and this book hit home so hard. And I think part of the reason is because the author says in her author's note that she wrote this based partially on some of her own real life experiences. And I loved the format of this book so much because the main character, she's writing to him in the past now that she knows all these things were abusive. She'll say, this is how many days it took me to fall out of love with you. So there is the use of you quite frequently throughout this book as she is talking to him. So we get to see just such a very genuine journey of her meeting this guy and falling for him, which that's a thing I think I wish more people would understand, why people fall for abusers. But at this time that these bad things are happening in this relationship, the narrator is able to stop and take that step back, and she's able to call it out right there on page as it is happening. So you can see that genuine fall, but then also have those things called out at the exact same time. And I loved the format. I loved how that was set up. It absolutely is not going to cover everybody's experience with an abusive relationship. This should not be your guidebook to what abuse looks like. But I definitely think that if you've been through an abusive relationship, this book will probably be pretty cathartic. And if you've never been through one, I think this book would also kind of shed some light on what behaviors are abusive. I really appreciated the jealousy and the manipulation and the assault aspects in this relationship, and just how much of a struggle it was for the main character to recognize this relationship for what it was. This book nailed it. It really nailed it, and it means a lot to me. It's one of those books that I'm never going to forget. I would definitely recommend it if you're interested in those things, but I'm not going to give you guys like a blanket recommendation because I think it could be very upsetting and harmful to people who are not yet past some of the things that are in this book are. Luckily, I'm in a place where I can read about this stuff now, and I enjoy reading about it. So, you know, I'm not trying to push anyone. You need to read this if you've experienced abuse or manipulation. You don't. Take care of yourself because this book is very intense. Just be prepared before you go into it. But it was my favorite book I read this month, and it is absolutely one of my favorites of the year. That's everything that I read in August, and I would love to hear if you guys have read any of these books and you want to talk about them further. We can definitely chat down below, and I would love to hear what your favorite book of the month was. I'm going to have my TBR video up for you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope any of these reviews have been helpful to you, and I will see you in the comments. Bye!